Okay, guys, hello, good morning.
Hello, ma'am. Good morning.
How are you?
I'm
Good
fine,
morning,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay, guys, sorry. Let's start our practice lesson. Let's at first talk about meiosis, yes? Let's repeat about meiosis, okay? Muhammad Takis, what is the
Yes, ma'am.
meiosis? Can you say me about phases?
Ma'am, about meiosis, ma'am, is a process, ma'am, where a single cells divide to produce four cells containing, ma'am, the half original amount of genetic informations. Yes, and these cells are, ma'am, sex cells like sperms in males and eggs in females.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am. And the stages, ma'am, stages they are prophase one.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am. In prophase one, the chromosomes condense and nuclear envelope breaks down. And the another
Mm-hmm.
stage is metaphase one. In this stage, pairs of homologous chromosomes moves the equator of the cells. Yes, ma'am. Like
Mm-hmm.
another phase, anaphase one, telophase one, prophase two, and metaphase two, anaphase two, and telophase two, or cytokinesis.
Mm-hmm. And what about we have a types, yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Prophase one.
Yes,
5
ma'am.
phases. First one is leptotene, yes. Second one is zygotene, pituitine, and diplotene, diakinesis, and yes, what this one?
About my prophase one.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. During prophase one, homologous chromosomes pairs and forms synapses.
Mm-hmm.
This is a unique step of meiosis. In this period, chromosomes are called bivalents, and the formation of chiasmata caused by genetic recombinations that ma'am becomes apparent. Chromosomal condensations, ma'am, allows these to be viewed in the microscopes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am, this is occurs after G2 of interphase. DNA has been already replicated when prophase begins.
Mm-hmm. And what about metaphase, anaphase?
Ma'am, metaphase.
Yes,
About metaphase,
metaphase
yes, ma'am.
one.
Metaphase one, yes, ma'am. The first metaphase of meiosis one encompasses the alignment of paired chromosomes along the center of our cells. Yes, and it ensuring that two complete copies of chromosomes and parents in the resulting of two daughter cells of meiosis one.
Mm-hmm.
Metaphase, ma'am, it also allows prophase one and precedes anaphase one.
Mm-hmm.
And in this phase, homologous chromosomes align and either side of the equatorial plate. Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Then in anaphase one, the spindle fibers contrast and pull the homologous chromosomes and each with the two chromatids away from each other, like ma'am, towards each pole of the cells.
Mm-hmm.
And in telophase one, the chromosomes are enclosed in a nuclei.
Mm-hmm. Today we'll talk about ontogenetic, yes, it's organisms reproduction, and we have a classification of reproduction types, and the ability to reproduce itself is one of the main features of life systems, and on molecular level, reproduction process is determined by nucleic acids duplication ability, and
Yes,
on
ma'am.
ontogenetic level, self-reproduction is performed in different forms, for example, from simple divisions of protists to sexual reproduction of animals and plants, and which is very complicated process, is in structural and functional aspects. And what is the reproduction?
Reproduction. Reproduction is a biological process in which an individual organisms or offspring is produced from their parent. Yes,
Yes, the
ma'am.
ability of organisms, yes, to
Yeah, ma'am.
produce new organisms similar to them, and and ability of organism to produce offsprings, and one's being is supported by cell reproduction, and species being is supported by organisms reproduction, and the reproduction is condition of species being and generations continuity in it, and we have a types, yes.
Yes, ma'am. We have a types of reproduction, like ma'am, asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction.
Mm-hmm.
Asexual reproduction, like ma'am, plants, and sexual reproductions, like animals.
Mm-hmm. And why do organisms reproduce?
Yes, ma'am.
Why do organisms reproduce? It's for just your brainstorm.
Why they are produced, ma'am?
Why do organisms reproduce?
Why organisms are reproduced?
Mm-hmm.
Ma'am, it's a genetic process, like ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
And
Uh, ma'am, like uh, when a human beings are produced, ma'am, they have a genetic makeup uh, that allows them to reproduce another child. It's
mm-hmm.
all about genetic, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. For
And
example,
what
ma'am,
is the result of reproduction?
ma'am, to continue the chain of life, ma'am, to pass on its
Mm-hmm.
genes which acquired over linear ma'am, is also essential by individuals produce new individual of same kind, and
Mm-hmm.
for also ma'am, importance for the existence of life in the earth. Sorry, on the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Ma'am,
Okay.
yes, ma'am.
Now let's talk about asexual reproduction. Yes.
Yeah, ma'am. Asexual reproduction.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Asexual reproduction. Okay. Do you want Muhammad Taki?
Yeah, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Ma'am,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
uh, yes, ma'am. In this, there is a single set of chromosomes, ma'am. Single set in
Mm-hmm.
yes, ma'am. In asexual production, that ma'am combines with another to produce an organism composed of cells with two sets of chromosomes.
Mm. In which only one parent organism takes part. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. And
And ma'am, for example, ma'am, in bacterium, ma'am,
mm-hmm.
like bacterium, ma'am, it undergoes a binary fission. Yes, ma'am, in which the cells, ma'am, divide into two along with the nucleus.
Mm-hmm.
Like ma'am, hydras and black worms, mudworms, that they are produced by fragmentation or
Mm-hmm.
asexual production by.
Yes. As a result of this division or budding, now several new organisms are formed, and about genotype. These organisms are identical in genotype to parent organism, and during a sexual reproduction, the somatic cell sets the new organisms, and protists. This was it's amoeba, flagellata, and infusoria. It's a bacteria, and some green algae have asexual reproduction in form of binary fission, yes,
Yeah,
and
ma'am.
plasmodiums in form of schizogony, and some of fungi in form of budding, and the toxoplasm has an internal budding, so-called endogeny, yes. And we have a multicellular plants and monocellular plants, yes.
Ma'am, asexual production and ma'am, they are not involved in fusion of gametes, ma'am. Like
Mm-hmm.
sexual production in sexual productions, ma'am, they are involved in fusion of gametes or change in number, ma'am, or number of chromosomes. Like ma'am,
Mm-hmm.
like in animals, ma'am, but in ma'am, plants, like unicellular, they have full set of genes of their ma'am single parent.
Mm-hmm. And
They don't change their number of ma'am chromosomes.
mm-hmm.
Then that this
Yes.
is yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. Okay, say. Mm. You have a type of asexual reproduction. First one is binary fission. Yes, it's a cell division through mitosis, and it's bacteria, amoeba, and about budding. Budding, it means a bud grows from the body of parent organisms through mitosis. It's a hydra, cactus, yeast, and it's about fragmentation, degeneration.
That's why man spores, man and spores formation.
When offspring grows from a piece of its parent, and through mitosis, it's a starfish, plant cuttings, um, axolotl, this one. And what about vegetative propagation?
Yeah, ma'am. What, ma'am? Sorry,
Vegetative,
ma'am, I don't understand.
vegetative plant propagation. For
Ma'am,
example,
vegetative
plants.
reproduction. Ma'am, vegetative reproduction.
Yes,
Yes, ma'am. They are even in plants, ma'am, budding, which create a ma'am lunar rich scents a clone.
yes, they are just plants of uniform offspring grew from runners. Yes, that take root and in the ground and reproduce through mitosis. It's strawberries, potatoes. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Like potatoes, strawberry, not strawberries, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Like yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Ma'am. For example,
Mm-hmm.
potatoes and Benogenia,
Mm-hmm.
Begonia, ma'am. Like
And
and
what is the spore?
yes, ma'am.
Spore.
Ma'am, sports. Ma'am,
Yes.
sports. Uh, like ma'am, they are single-celled reproductive unit, ma'am. Ma'am, they are
Mm-hmm.
in non-flowering plants like bacteria, fungi, and algae. And ma'am, basically, spores are babies. Are like the babies, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
And but ma'am, they do not need a mom and a dad. Not our
Mm-hmm.
life. Yes, ma'am. To produce sexually, because ma'am, they spores like ma'am in air. They fly and sat on another flower like me female flower
Mm-hmm.
where they reproduce.
Mm-hmm. Guys, where to? You another students?
And they are
Yes,
present also.
ma'am.
Yes. Now 7 student. How many students do you have in your group?
Ma'am, we have 14 students. Ma'am, but seven are present and seven are absent.
Mm, okay. Okay. Alina Mustafa, can you repeat about asexual reproduction? What does it mean and types of asexual reproduction? And
Yes,
what is the
ma'am.
spore?
Asexual. Yes, ma'am. Asexual reproduction is type of reproduction that is not involved in fusion of gametes or in the change in number of chromosomes, so that the offsprings are arise from either unicellular or multicellular organisms that
Mm-hmm.
inherit full set of genes of their single parent, and they are same as their parents. And
Mm-hmm.
in asexual reproduction, there is a binary fission. There is a binary fission. There is spore formation, and there is budding. These all are the examples of asexual reproduction.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am. And in spore formation, the spore formation is a method of asexual reproduction in which spores are stored in sacs like sporangia. And
Mm-hmm.
these sporangia, when burst, then the single cell structure is formed, that is spores. And under the suitable condition, they develop into a new plant
Mm-hmm.
like their parent.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am. Budding is also a method of asexual reproduction,
Yes.
and in which new organism develop from an outgrowth or a bud. that is present over there, so that a small bulb-like projection coming out from yeast is called a bud.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am. And the next one is uh, uh, next example is ma'am, binary fission.
Mm-hmm.
Ma'am, it is also a type of asexual reproduction that happens in bacteria. So a single organism becomes two independent organisms.
Mm-hmm.
It is a duplication of organelle in eukaryotes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. And
And
what is the spore?
ma'am, fragmentation.
Mm-hmm.
It is splitting of a cell into two parts and new bodies.
Yes.
Each fragment develop into mature clones genetically and
Mm-hmm.
morphologically identical to its parent.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am. And ma'am, spore is a reproductive body consists of one or several cells formed by cell division in parent organism. When detached and dispersed, if condition is suitable, it germinates into new individual. And it occurs mainly in fungi, bacteria, in protozoa.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. Yes, about spore, is one life of cycle and cycle stages using for reproduction, and it is consists of cell appeared from mitosis or meiosis, and it's covered by coat which defends it from harmful external conditions and protists, algae, fungi, and they have a spore formation, and bacteria
Yes, ma'am.
also produce spores. Yes, but their
Yes, ma'am.
spores serve for surviving in conditions and not for reproduction, and some higher plants have a spore formation as a way of the reproduction.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what is the sexual reproduction?
Ma'am, sexual reproduction is type of reproduction that involve a complex cycle in which gamete with single set of chromosomes combine together and produce an organism composed of cells with two sets of chromosome. Yeah, it is sexual as well as and the sexual reproduction is a union of two gametes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am. Uh, it it mainly occurs in human beings, animals.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am. And it is important because it produces variable offsprings that have diversity and variations among population.
Mm-hmm.
It is
And
important for plants as well,
yes,
as
for plants
it
and
provides.
mhm.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the advantage of cross pollination?
What is the
Advantage of cross pollination for plants?
advantage of cross pollination?
Cross pollination, yes.
Oh, okay, okay, ma'am. Ma'am, in cross pollination, offspring produced are healthier, and new
Mm-hmm.
varieties can be produced through cross pollination.
Mm-hmm.
That are and the varieties are of same species or maybe
Mm-hmm.
of two species. And if there is a cross pollination, the seeds that are produced are abundant and viable.
Mm-hmm. And okay, continue.
Ma'am,
About plants, can you give me example of a plant then that contains both male and female organs and gametes, and contains only one type, male or female of reproductive organ?
ma'am, I can't understand your question. Can you please repeat?
Okay, continue. Alina Mustafa. about sexual
Ma'am, sexual
reproduction.
reproduction in flowering plants involves the production of female and male gametes. The transfer of the male gametes to the female ovules in a process
Mm-hmm.
is called pollination. When the pollination occurs, fertilization happens and ovules grow into the new seed within a fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am, sexual reproduction produces offspring by fusion of gametes, so they are genetically different from their parents.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
What is the
they have the.
gamete?
Yes, ma'am.
What is the gamete?
Ma'am, gametes are organisms' reproductive cells. They are referred as
Mm-hmm.
sex cells. Female gametes are called ova or egg cells, and male gametes are called sperms. Gametes are
Mm-hmm.
haploid cells with each carrier only one copy of each chromosome.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sexual reproduction means the development of offspring from fertilized ovicell zygote, yes, and fused male and female sex cells. And while sexual reproduction, the continuity between generations is performed by special sex cells, gametes, and such cells have a haploid chromosome and set, and they are formed in meiosis, and these cells are spermatozoa and ovicelles, yes. And
Yes, ma'am.
we have types of sexual reproduction. First one is the conjugation, yes, and the second one is the copulation, and third one is irregular types, and this includes of parthenogenesis, genogenesis, and androgenesis. What does it mean? First one is the conjugation.
But ma'am,
Conjugation.
ma'am, conjugation reproduction.
Yes.
Conjugation is a sexual process in which two lower organisms of same species such as bacteria, protozoa, algae, and fungi exchange nuclear material during a temporary union and complete transfer one organism's contents to the other.
Mm-hmm.
And ma'am, in bacteria, cell designated as F positive and F negative lie close to each other, and a narrow bridge of cytoplasm form between them.
Yes, the conjugation is the fusion. Yes, it's a form of sexual reproduction providing increasing genetic variability, having no sex cell formation, and it occurs in prokaryotes, for example, enterobacteria, pseudomonads, infusoria, algae, fungi, and
Yes,
during
ma'am.
conjugation, two organisms unites for genetic information exchange, and organisms
Yes, ma'am.
genetically different from parents appear. And
Yes, ma'am.
okay, second one is copulation, yes, or
Coagulation.
joining. Copulation.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, coagulation is ma'am, coagulation.
Mm, copulation.
Ma'am, can you please
Okay, right.
write uh, copulation?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, copulation it is animal sexual behavior in which a male introduces sperms into the female process, especially
Mm-hmm.
directly into the reproductive tract.
Mm-hmm.
And sexual intercourse or copulation is the deposition of sperm into female via a male organ. In human, the intermittent organ is the penis, and sperm are deposited into the vagina.
Mm-hmm.
They make their way towards the uterus to fertilize an egg.
Yes, the process of sex cell fusion, and in which cells are almost same or different, same
Yes, ma'am.
isogamy and different in isogamy. And isogamy occurs in monocellular algae,
Yes,
lower fungi, yes, and
yes, ma'am. It also
anisogamy
lead to
occurs.
external fertilization.
Mm-hmm.
such as in amphibians, in fishes, in plants. Mating is between two individuals of opposite sexes.
Mm-hmm. And what about types, irregular types of sexual reproduction, parthenogenesis?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I will write.
Parthenogenesis,
Mm-hmm.
ma'am, is a form of reproduction in which an egg can develop into an embryo without being fertilized by a sperm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am. It includes aphids, bees, and ants are
Mm-hmm.
known to reproduce by parthenogenesis.
Mm-hmm.
Spontaneous parthogenic and endogenetic events occur in humans, but they result in tumors.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am. Examples of the plants showing pathogenesis, and it also include the honeybees and birds.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. It will be diploid or haploid, yes, somatic and generative parthenogenesis. In
Yes,
somatic
ma'am.
parthenogenesis, an ovicell is not subject to reducing division meiosis, and in
Yes, ma'am.
generative, embryos developed from haploid cell, and plant parthenogenesis is called apomixis, yes. Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
but next one is genogenesis.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right.
Ma'am, right. Yes.
I wrote the chat.
Okay, okay, ma'am. Genogenesis.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, m-
When
Ma'am,
sperm.
it is a form of parthenogenesis, and
Mm-hmm.
it is a system of asexual reproduction that requires the presence of sperm without the actual contribution of its DNA for the completion.
Mm-hmm.
The paternal DNA dissolves or is destroyed before it can fuse with the egg.
Mm-hmm. When sperm serves
And
only
ma'am,
like activators, yes, of ovicell development, and fertilization doesn't occur, and only
uh,
female genetic material is used for embryo level.
yes, ma'am, and its examples are also include honeybees, some plants and birds.
Mm-hmm. And what is the
Ye-
fertilization?
yes, ma'am.
What is the fertilization?
Fertilization.
Mm-hmm.
Ma'am, fertilization is a fusion of haploid gametes, especially egg and
Mm-hmm.
sperm, to form the diploid zygote.
Mm-hmm.
As the fertilization process occurs naturally within the body or through reproductive technologies outside the body, the overall
Mm-hmm.
product in both cases is a diploid zygote.
Mm-hmm.
And there are the four stages of fertilization: sperm
Mm-hmm.
preparation, sperm egg recognition and binding, sperm egg fusion, and fusion of sperm and egg, and activation of the zygote.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and last one is androgenesis, yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Last one, last of type of sexual reproduction is androgenesis, yes? When embryo development is performed male and female, male
Yes,
nucleuses and
ma'am. It is a
mm-hmm,
form of production in which a male is the sole source of nuclear genetic material in the embryo.
mm-hmm,
And two types of endogenesis occur in nature. Under the first
mm-hmm,
type, female produce egg without a nucleus, and embryo develops from the male gamete following
mm-hmm,
fertilization.
mm-hmm,
It also refers to plant regeneration directly from microscopic culture
mm-hmm.
as a result of sporophytic division. Multicellular microspores develops within the anthers,
Yes.
and as a result of differentiation of multicellular units of the pollen embryos, they develop haploid plants.
Mhm. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
When from male nucleus and female cytoplasm, and it may place in such as cases when female nucleus has died before fertilization occurs, and if only one sperm enters of a cell, and there is development of haploid embryo, and it may survive better if diploid chromosome set is restored, and if there is a polyspermy in the fusion of two male nucleuses may occur, and androgenesis occurs in silkworms, some west species, and androgenesis and genogenesis are used for studying heredity principles, nucleus
Yes,
cytoplasm
ma'am.
interactions, yes, for getting
Yes, ma'am.
strictly homozygote organisms and animals of same sex. Okay, Alina Mustafa, full 20.
Yes, ma'am.
Full 20 points.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Alina Mustafa, and what about your student independent work?
Yes, ma'am.
What about your student independent work?
Ma'am, I will already done. I submitted model.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Your homework is to write this topic notes, and please draw spermatozoa and ovicells. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Mhm. And what about another students? They should write all the topics until first and fifth topic. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
You're just writing this topic. Fifth one, ontogenesis. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Next one is
Thank you.
gametogenesis. We'll continue. Muhammad Zishan. Muhammad Zishan.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let's talk about gametogenesis.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, gametogenesis is a biological process by which diploid or haploid predecessor cells undergo cell division and differentiate to form mature haploid gametes. Depending on the biological life cycle of the organism, gametogenes occur by meiotic division of diploid gametocyte into various gametes or by meiosis. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yes, ma'am. Uh,
Yes.
There are two types of gametogenes, spermatogenesis and oogenesis are both form of gametogenesis in which diploid gamete cell produce haploid sperm and egg cell.
And
And
we have a
the
period. Yes,
gametogene
full
occur
period.
when a haploid cell is formed
Mm-hmm.
from a diploid cell through meiosis. We call gametogene in the male spermatogenesis and it produce spermatozoa, and female we call it oogenesis. Um, Sperms are also called spermatozoa, plural spermatozoa, male reproductive cells produced by most animals.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
In human,
Mm-hmm.
like almost all mammals, the male and female ratio sperm is split approximately 50-50.
Yes, let's now talk about spermatogenesis. Yes, and
Yes, ma'am.
during a first period, this period of reproduction, cells of sexual germ are presented by spermatogonia. Yes, and
Yes.
what happens?
Which ma'am again, please?
Spermatogonia, it's the small round-shaped cells with a small amount of cytoplasm dividing very actively, and they're subject to division almost all lifelong, and the part of spermatogonia stops their division and they are changed to spermatozoa, yes,
Yes. In
and
ma'am, a spermatogonia is an undifferentiated male germ cell. Spermatogonia undergoes spermatogenesis to form mature spermatozoa. In the seminiferous tubule of the testis, there are three subtypes of spermatogonia in human: type 1 dark cell and with dark nuclei,
Mm-hmm.
and the spermatids are
Mm-hmm.
transferred into sperm by the process of spermiogenesis. This develop into mature spermatozoa now as sperm cell.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Yes, when.
spermatogenesis
Mm-hmm.
is the next spermatogenesis is the biological process of producing mature sperm cell and occur in the male gonads of sexually reproducing organism, ma'am. And this process, the undifferentiated male germ cell develop into spermatozoa.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Mm-hmm. Yes,
yes,
spermatogonia stops their division and their change to spermatozoa and growth. Yes,
yes, ma'am.
growth period is characterized by reproduction termination, and spermatogonia are changed to primary spermatocyte. Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
and
And,
they grow, increasing their size in 4 times, and
uh, ma'am,
primary spermatocytes are changed to secondary
change into
spermatocytes,
spermatozoa.
and then to spermatids,
Yes, ma'am.
and
Spermatozoa. Ma'am.
okay, and spermatids in 4 times less in volume than primary spermatocytes, and um, these spermatids during period of formation are changed to spermatozoids. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. And
And what about oogenesis?
ma'am, which oogenesis?
Oogenesis. Yes.
Okay. Ma'am, is the type of reproduction which, ma'am, oogenesis in occur in female, we called female egg.
Ovicell. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Oogonia.
The process of egg formation called oogenesis. The the ma'am process of formation of oogenesis is egg formation is called oogenesis, and in which the primary egg or ovum become a mature ovum. These cells now as primary ova. The primary ova remain dormant until just period to ovulation, when an egg is released from the ovary. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
ma'am. And ma'am,
Yes.
as
Mm-hmm.
spermatogenesis or and oogenesis are process of formation of male and female gametes, and ma'am, oogenesis involve three key phases: proliferation and growth and maturation, during which PGS progress to primary oocytes, secondary oocytes, and then to mature oocytes. Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. What about
Oogenesis take place in oogenesis take place in only 12 days, so the nerve cells are very metabolically active during this time,
mm-hmm.
and oogenesis begin before birth but is not finished until after puberty. A mature egg form only if a secondary oocyte is fertilized by sperm, and ma'am, the primary oocyte remain in resting state, nestled in tiny immature follicle until puberty.
Mm-hmm. And what
Yes,
is the
ma'am.
ovicelles?
The egg cell travel down the fallopian tube in the uterus. The moment the egg cell leaves the ovary is called ovulation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What is the ovicelles?
Which, ma'am?
Ovicelles.
Ovicell.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, ma'am. An ovarian follicle consisting of developing oocytes surrounded by one or more layer of cells called follicular cells. At the same time that the oocytes is progressing through meiosis, corresponding changes are taking place in the follicular cell.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
And can
ma'am.
you say me about difference of oogenesis from spermatogenesis?
From which?
Oogenesis from spermatogenesis.
Yes, ma'am. Uh, Ma'am, spermatogenesis and oogenesis are process of formation of male and female gamete. Spermatogenesis lead to formation of sperm, while oogenesis help in the formation of ova.
Mm-hmm.
And ma'am, spermatogenesis is the final differentiation and maturation process of the spermatid in the cell.
Mm-hmm.
And ma'am, glomerular cells or follicle cells that surround. And ma'am,
Mm-hmm.
spermatogenesis and oogenesis are formation of male and female gametes, and the fertilization of sperm and ova led to formation of zygote with further development into embryo.
Mm-hmm.
And ma'am,
Yes, first one is when the reproduction period of oogonia is terminated after birth, and when the oogenesis growth period is longer and have subdivisions to small growth and large growth, yes, and
yes ma'am,
this oocyte becomes bigger than spermatocyte, and
yes ma'am,
primary
the
oocyte
and
may
ma'am,
give. Mhm.
one mature ovum is produced in oogenesis and four mature sperm are produced in spermatogenesis, and
Yes.
one mature ovum is produced in oogenesis, and four mature sperm are produced in spermatogenesis.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. And an oogenesis period of formation is almost absent,
Yes,
and about ovicelles. Ovicelles are oval, big, immobile cells, yes, and which are the hundreds or millions times bigger than spermatozoa. And
yes,
many animals have ovicell, but without centrosome, unable to be divided. And what about there are several ovum types according to yolk amount and distribution, and ovicelles may be primary and secondary ovicelles. And
yes,
what
ma'am.
about? Can you tell me about ovicell?
Yes, ma'am. The egg cell or ovum, plural called ova, is the female reproductive cell or gamete in most anisogamesis organism that reproduce sexually, with a larger female gamete and a smaller male one. The term is
Mhm,
used for the female gamete is not. Yes, ma'am.
mhm. This was Muhammad Zishan, yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The ovary contain the female gamete cell called the oocyte. In non-medical term, the oocytes are called ma'am egg, and ovaries are filled with follicles. Follicles are fluid-filled structure in which the oocytes are also called egg. Grows to maturity.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Muhammad Zishan. Thank you.
Yes,
Next one.
ma'am.
Rohma
Welcome.
Maksham.
Yes,
20 score. Okay, Rohma Maksham. Can you complete about ovicelles?
ma'am. Ovary cells, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, basically, an ovarian follicle consists of a developing oocyte surrounded by one or more layers of cells called follicular cells. At the same
Mm-hmm.
time that the oocyte is progressing through meiosis, corresponding changes are taking place in the follicular cells. Primordial follicles, which consist of a primary oocyte surrounded by a single layer of flattened cells, develop in the fetus and are the stage that is present in the ovaries at birth and throughout childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, First of all, beginning at puberty, follicle stimulating hormone stimulates changes in the primordial follicles. The follicular cells become cuboidal, the primary oocyte enlarges, and it is now a primary follicle. The follicle continues to grow under the influence of follicle stimulating hormone, and the follicular cells proliferate to form several layers of granular cells around the primary oocyte. Most of these primary follicles degenerate along with the primary oocytes within them, but usually one continues to develop each month.
Mm-hmm.
The granulosa cells start secreting estrogen, and a cavity or antrum forms within the follicle. When the antrum starts to develop, the follicle becomes a secondary follicle. The granular cells also secrete a glycoprotein substance that forms a clear membrane, the zona pellucida around the oocyte. After about 10 days of growth, the follicle is a mature vesicular follicle, which forms a blister on the surface of the ovary and contains a secondary oocyte ready for ovulation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what is the spermatozoa?
Ma'am, spermatozoa is one form of male sex cells that carry a man's genetic man's genetic information.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am. They are so tiny that they can't be seen without microscope.
Mm-hmm. Has head, neck, and tail. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Has a sperm has neck, head, and tail. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
And in the
Ma'am,
head there is
you
nucleus. Yes, surrounded by
structure?
twin. Yes, I am about structure.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, sperm is the sperm has the head that is the most important part of the cell um, in spermatozoa.
Mm-hmm.
His, it contains the nucleus genetic material with 23
Yes.
chromosomes,
Mm-hmm.
which is required to form a new organism.
Mm-hmm.
Apart from the nucleus, the head is also made up of several parts such as acrosome and acrosomal cap.
Yes.
Together, the two make up the acrosomal region formed during spermiogenesis. The acrosome is the product of Golgi complex and
Yes.
contains a number of contents such as acrosin enzyme in the acrosomal matrix.
Mm-hmm.
Apart from the enzymes, the acrosome also contains such polysaccharides as mannose, hexosamine, and galactose.
Mm-hmm.
The acrosome itself has an inner and outer membrane, acrosomal membrane, where the outer membrane borders the plasma membrane, and while
Mm-hmm.
the inner acrosomal membrane borders the nuclear membrane. The
Mm-hmm.
acrosome plays a number of important roles in fertilization, for instance, with a number of its associated molecules. The acrosome is involved in the recognition of the oocyte egg to be fertilized. Once the sperm cells comes in contact with the diffusible molecules from the egg, this stimulates the cell to swim towards the eggs.
Mm-hmm.
This recognition of the egg based on molecules composition is known as chemotaxis. Having
Mm-hmm.
identified the high concentration of the molecule, the cell swims towards the egg. In turn, physical contact results in acrosome reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Chemotaxis mainly allows the sperm to navigate towards the eggs through chemical signals. Therefore, this is an important process that ensures that the sperm fertilizes the conspecific egg.
Mm-hmm.
There is, ma'am, acrosome reaction. The acrosome
Mm-hmm.
reaction is an important event that occurs when the sperm comes in contact with the oocyte membrane at different sites.
Mm-hmm.
In some animals, sperm contact with zona pellucida on the
Mm-hmm.
plasma membrane of the oocyte and initiates acrosome reactions. This is calcium dependent event that results in exocytosis of the outer acrosome membrane, thus exposing contents of the acrosome. Allows acrosome enzyme, that is acrosin, to be released and supports sperm entry into the egg. Acrosin, one of the secondary ligands, is involved in lysis of thick membrane covering zona pellucida. Essentially, the enzyme is stored in the acrosome in an inactive form known as zymogen. The pH level inside the acrosome is lower, which causes the enzyme to remain inactive. When it comes to contact with the glycoproteins of zona pellucida, the enzyme is converted into acrosin, an active form that is capable of acting on the membrane. This in turn allows the sperm cells to penetrate and enter the egg for fertilization to take place. Now, the acrosome enzymes are also known as lysosomal enzymes. Then there is nucleus. The sperm head is the part of the cell that contains the nucleus. And the nucleus takes up 65% of the head and consists of 23 chromosomes. Once the sperm enters the egg, the chromosomes combine with the female gamete to make up 46 chromosomes. It's the total of 46 chromosomes that determine the characteristics of fetus. The sperm head makes up about 10% of the entire cell. Then there is midpiece. The midpiece is the central part of the sperm cell between the head and the tail. Like the head, the midpiece makes up about 10% of total sperm length. Unlike the sperm head that carries genetic material, the midpiece contains tightly packed mitochondria that provide the energy for swimming. Then there is mitochondria is also suggested to play a role in controlled cell death known as apoptosis. And then centriole. The centriole is a part of the sperm cell located between the head and the midpiece in a complex referred as the centriole centrosome complex. The centriole is involved in the formation of sperm ester and zygote ester. These are essential for movement of the pronuclear for union with the female genome. Moreover, the centriole is involved in the production of mitotic apparatus involved in separating chromosomes during cell division at all subsequent centrioles. Then the tail, the sperm tail is a thin, elongated structure that makes up about 80% of the entire length of the sperm. While the tail may appear to be one long continuous structure, it is divided into several parts that includes connecting piece, which is the part that connects the flagellum to the sperm head. And then midpiece, in some books, the midpiece, basically known as one of the part of the tail, it contains mitochondria. Which gives energy for the movement, then principal piece, and then the end piece. The principal piece and end piece of flagella help generate the waveform that allows for movement. The main function of it is motility. Motility is the characteristic of cell developed sperm cell. Which is of two types. One is activative motility. This is the type observed in the early ages of motility. In this type of motility, sperm's flagella beats gently from one side to another as the cell moves along what may appear to be a straight path. Then there is hyperactivated motility. Hyperactivated motility is the second type compared to activated. This type of motility occurs in female reproductive tract. Hyperactivated motility is also more erratic with the flagellum depicting a symmetrical lower amplitude waveform due to the erratic pattern of motion in hyperactivated motility. More energy is used for this movement. It also serves to prevent the sperm cells from getting trapped through the reproductive tract of the female, as well as enhance the sperm penetration into the egg. Motility is only possible if the flagellum is well developed and fully functional, and if the cell has a source of energy to support movement. Cells have been an average rate of swim per minute is 3 millimeter a minute. Then, ma'am.
Okay, Rahma Maksham. That's all. 20
Okay,
score,
ma'am.
okay? Okay. Next one is quickly Sania Sajjad. What is the insemination? Sania Sajjad. Okay, absent. Next one, Sieda Fatima.
Hello, ma'am.
Sania Sajjad,
Ma'am,
are
I'm
you here?
present. I'm not absent.
Okay. Your question is insemination, okay? And
Ma'am,
Sieda
can you please
Fatima,
repeat?
insemination.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, next one, Sieda Fatima.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, your question is
Ma'am.
fertilization, okay?
Fertilization.
Okay, ma'am. Can I start?
And next one, no, wait, Urva Fatima.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, your question is hermaphroditism.
Yes.
And M.
Can
Asad
you please
Islam.
repeat?
Urva
Ma'am,
Fatima.
can you repeat my question? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, hermaphroditism. I wrote to the chat.
Ma'am, write in chat.
I wrote to the chat. Okay, M. Asad Islam.
Yes, ma'am.
Your question is a difference between sexual and asexual reproduction, okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, Sania Sajjad, start. What is the
Yes,
insemination?
ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Artificial insemination is a fertility treatment method used to deliver sperm directly to the cervix or uterus in the hopes of getting pregnant. Sometimes these sperms are washed or prepared to increase the likelihood a woman will get pregnant. Ma'am, the process of insemination is include IUI procedure. The doctor slides a thin, flexible tube through your cervix into your uterus. They use a small syringe to insert the sperm through the tube directly into your uterus. Pregnancy happens if sperms fertilizes an egg and the fertilized egg implants in the lining of your uterus. Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, continue.
Yes, continue about insemination. About providing sperm and ovule meeting, yes, and their external and internal insemination we have.
Yes, ma'am.
During
Through the
external
cervix into the uterus.
insemination.
And into a fallopian tube where an egg is fertilized. However, sometimes a man's sperm is not mobile enough to make this trip. Other times, a woman's cervix may not be favorable to allow sperm to travel into the uterus. In these instances and other situations, artificial insemination may help a woman conceive. After 6 months of having unprotected sex, if a woman is older than age 35, or after a year of having unprotected sex, if a woman is younger than age 35. ISA is a type of artificial insemination that involves inserting sperms into the cervix.
Okay, Sanya Sajjad, 20. Next
Okay,
one. Sieda Fatima, what is the fertilization? Let's say me about just 3 stages. First one is penetration, activation, and fusion. Let's talk about this one.
Yes, ma'am. The process of the fertilization involves a sperm fusing with an ovum. The sperm plasma then fuses with the egg plasma membrane, triggering the sperm head to disconnect the flagellum as the egg basically travel down into the fallopian tube and reach to the uterus. Then, ma'am, it has, we can say that 4 steps. Like, first of all, the sperm preparation, then egg recognition and binding of the egg, we can say that. Then, ma'am, the sperm egg fusion of the egg and sperm, and then it occurs the activation of the zygote.
What is the fertilization code?
What is the fertilization called?
Code.
Ma'am, I'm not getting you. Called or called?
Caught.
Right. Okay. Called. Ma'am, can you just type so that I can get you?
Yes, I wrote to the chat.
Okay, ma'am. Just a second. I'll look. Quote. Okay. Quote. Ma'am, the sperm coat, you are asking about the sperm coat layer?
Yes.
It's ma'am, the sperm is basically coated with the proteins.
Okay, when
With
the
the,
ovicell
we can
activation
say
is a
that
series.
number of proteins.
Yes, series of events headed by sperm
It
penetration.
provides
Yes.
a sort of shock absorber.
Okay, Sita Fatima 20.
Yes, ma'am.
Next one, Urva Fatima. Urva Fatima.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the hermaphroditism?
Yes, ma'am. Hermaphrodism, also referred as the intersex, is a condition in which there is a discrepancy between external and internal sexual genital organ. It is grouped together with other conditions as a disorder of sexual reproduction. True hermaphroditic human do not exist, but pseudo-hermaphrodism does, where an individual has both male and female external genital organs sometime at the same time. Female embryos exposed to high level of androgens develop female's internal reproductive organ, but male exists genitalia. A hermaphrodite is someone who has some or all primary sexual characteristics of both genders. For example, penis and vulva. There are three types of hermaphrodites: true male pseudo and female pseudo. A true hermaphrodite is someone who has both ovary and testicular tissues.
Okay, Urva Fatima 20. Next one, Asad Aslam.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can you say me difference?
Yes, ma'am. There are a lot of difference, and some of from these. In asexual reproduction, it involves only single organisms, but in sexual reproduction, it involves one or two organisms. In sexual reproduction, there is no production of gametes, and there is no fusion of gametes. This is the main difference. And in sexual productions, male and female gametes are produced, and there is also a fusion of male and female gametes. In sexual production, it requires only mitotic division, but in sexual production, it requires meiotic division. Uh, in asexual reproduction, it produced offsprings that are identical to parents, but in sexual production of offsprings have some characteristics from its male parents and others from female parents, and some characters may not be present in either of these parents. uh, so in sexual production is very useful for natural selection, but and sexual reproduction is highly useful for natural selection in evolution of species. And it occurs sexual reproduction, it occurs by budding, fragmentation, but sexual reproduction, it occurs through fertilization. These are some main differences. And sexual production involves parents and produce offspring that are identical, but during sexual reproduction, two haploid gametes join in the process of fertilization to produce a diploid zygote.
Okay. Masad Salam, thank you. 20 points, okay? All of you 20 points.
Wow.
And what about your student independent work? Student independent work, you know, I gave you syllabus, yes? And on your syllabus, you have student independent work, and there's so many topics. That's why please choose yourself 5 topics and write notes, okay? And send me to the Moodle. I don't ask you for all topics notes and only 5 topics. Please divide them yourself in your group, with your group mates, and that these topics don't coincide, and that's why please divide these topics from each other and send me, okay? Just 5 topics.
Okay,
Do you
Okay, ma'am.
understand?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
In WhatsApp
And
group.
what about your homework? Your homework to write this topic onto Genesis like shortly, and please draw about ovicell and spermatozoon, okay? Do you understand?
Okay, ma'am. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, guys, thank you.
Okay, ma'am.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Baka.
Пока.
Goodbye.
Пока.
До свидания, ma'am.
До свидания.
Bada, tu
Russian ka baba.